All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about two massive global forces that you might not think are connected: climate change and democracy. We're going to look at how extreme weather isn't just some abstract headline anymore. It's become a direct threat to the ballot box. I want to start with just one number: 33. Just let that number sink in for a moment. Yeah, that's how many polling officials died from extreme heat during a single day of voting in India's 2024 election. An absolutely unimaginable tragedy. And it starkly shows you the human cost when extreme weather slams right into our most fundamental civic duty. So you might be thinking, wow, what a horrible one-off event. But here's the thing: it's not. What happened in India wasn't some freak accident. It's a massive warning signal, a preview of what it looks like when democracy itself is, well, literally put under the heat. And we know this isn't an isolated tragedy because a brand new report from the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance confirms it. This is a global warning sign. The climate crisis is no longer some abstract future threat. No, it is actively disrupting elections right here, right now. Okay, so how big of a deal is this really? Was India just an extreme case, an outlier? Well, according to the report, not at all. In fact, it's part of a really disturbing global pattern. The investigation went back and looked at the last 2 decades, and they tallied every single reported disruption. The final number they landed on? It's this: 94. Just think about that. We're talking 94 elections across 52 different countries that have been directly impacted by extreme weather events in just the last 20 years. This isn't a rare occurrence. It's becoming a consistent feature of our modern world. So what's actually causing all this chaos? Well, if you look at the data, it's not just one thing. Yeah, tropical storms and floods, they make up the vast majority, about 2/3 of the problem. But look at the rest: heat waves, wildfires, the very things scientists keep telling us are becoming more frequent and intense. They're already responsible for a big chunk of these disruptions. And make no mistake, this is a universal risk. It's so easy to think of this as a problem for developing nations, but the data just flat out says that's wrong. We're talking floods disrupting voting in Australia, wildfires threatening elections in Canada and the US, cyclones in Mozambique. It doesn't matter how wealthy your country is, no democracy is immune. So all of this begs a really important question, right? Why is this happening more and more often? To get that, we have to connect the dots between our planet's changing climate systems and the fragility of our civic systems. You know, an expert at the United Nations really nailed it. He said that natural climate patterns like El Niño, that periodic warming of the Pacific that affects weather worldwide, are now acting as threat multipliers. They take the vulnerabilities a society already has and just amplify them to a degree we've simply never seen before. So what's one of those vulnerabilities? Well, there's this concept called water bankruptcy. Think of it like this. Imagine your region's groundwater is a bank account. For decades, we've been making constant withdrawals. Now, when a sudden shock like a drought hits, there's nothing left in the account. There's no buffer. And that kind of instability can easily spill over into social and political life, especially around an election. And this state of fragility, it's not just about groundwater. It's part of a much bigger picture of systemic stress happening all across our planet, from glaciers in the Himalayas just disappearing before our eyes to major rivers that sustain billions of people literally shrinking. And that fragility brings us to another stark number from the front lines of climate change, a real wake-up call. We're seeing a record 27% drop in how long snow stays on the ground in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so what, less snow? But here's why that matters. That snowpack is the source of fresh water for nearly 2 billion people. When the fundamental environment that supports society is this stressed, it's really no surprise that our social systems, including our ability to run a stable election, start to crack. All of this evidence really boils down to one urgent question: how prepared are our democratic systems to function in this volatile new reality? Are we ready? The short answer: not very. As the report highlights, right now our efforts are mostly just band-aids, like providing water at polling stations. Which is helpful, sure, but it doesn't address the massive systemic gaps you see here. We lack national plans, preparedness is totally uneven, and, crucially, we aren't treating our elections like the critical infrastructure they actually are. And that brings us to the report's central, game-changing idea. It's a call for resilience, and it requires completely reimagining how we view our elections. Here's the core message. We have to start treating our electoral systems as critical infrastructure. They are just as vulnerable to climate change as our power grids, our water systems, and our bridges, and they deserve the same exact level of protection and planning. But look, the good news is this is totally solvable. The report lays out a clear four-step path to get this done. First, integrate. We need to stop treating elections as separate from climate change and actually build them into our national adaptation plans. Second, coordinate. Election officials need to be talking directly with meteorologists and disaster agencies. It seems obvious, but it's not happening. Third, anticipate. Use forecasting data to prepare for threats before they hit. And finally, standardize. Create comprehensive risk management plans so that every community is equally prepared. So, what does safeguarding the ballot box really mean in the age of climate change? What does that future look like? Well, this isn't just about finding a dry place to put a voting booth. It's about safeguarding the very integrity of our elections. It's about ensuring the physical safety of every single voter and every poll worker so that participating in democracy is never a life or death decision. And that urgency just can't be overstated. As the head of the organization behind the report puts it, these are not distant risks. They are real threats that democratic institutions everywhere must face with urgency. Which leaves us all with one final crucial question to reflect on. When you look at your own systems, your own community, and your own government, ask yourself this: is our democracy climate-proof?